Okay, so get ready, because today we're tackling a really dense one.
Dense is putting it lightly.
Hamlet's Mill. Yeah, Hamlet's Mill by Giorgio de Santillana and Hertha von Dechend.
It's not exactly like beach reading.
No.
We're talking ancient texts, mythology from all over the place, astronomy.
A lot of astronomy.
It's a lot to take in, but trust me, it's worth it.
It is.
We're going deep on how myths, you know those stories? They often seem like simple little tales.
Right.
But they might actually hold some clues. Clues to a shared understanding of the cosmos, like way back in the day.
It's true, and a really ancient understanding, like way, way back.
Okay, so we're talking about the possibility that ancient cultures knew, like really knew about the movement of the heavens.
Yeah, and specifically this thing called the precession of the equinoxes. Okay, hold on. Before we go any further, what is this precession of the equinoxes thing? Why should I care?
Well, so imagine a spinning pup.
Oh.
And it's slowly wobbling on its axis. That wobble, it's kind of like precession. It's a very slow wobble, but it's the Earth's axis doing it. And it actually makes the position of the stars change, but like over thousands of years.
Okay.
What's interesting is that these authors, the authors of this book, they think that ancient cultures, they knew about this, and they actually put it into their mythologies.
So the book starts off, and it's a familiar story.
Yeah.
Hamlet.
Hamlet. Everybody knows Hamlet.
But there's a twist.
Okay.
They connect Hamlet to Norse legends about this grinding mill, like at the bottom of the sea.
Okay.
And even to the magical Sampo from Finnish mythology.
Whoa, how do you go from Hamlet to a magical mill? Those are pretty different stories.
Well, so remember how Hamlet, you know, he was like the inspiration for Hamlet?
Okay, yeah.
He's riding his horse backward.
Yeah.
So it's not just a random detail.
So it actually means something.
It points to this cleverness in the original myth.
Got it.
Which is kind of a recurring theme throughout the book.
Okay.
It's like all these stories, right? Even the really out there fantastical ones, they might actually have clues about how these ancient cultures understood the cosmos. Like they were embedding this really complex knowledge in their myths.
Wow, that's amazing. So they're passing this knowledge down through generations, but in stories. But how did these authors even discover this? It seems like a huge jump to go from, like, Hamlet to the cosmos.
Well, that's where linguistics comes in.
Okay.
It looks at all these different languages, even Finnish and Estonian. And these languages are, like, geographically super far from the Indo-European ones.
Right.
But they still seem to have echoes of similar astronomical concepts.
So even languages that have totally different roots are pointing back to some shared knowledge of the stars. But what kind of astronomical concepts are we actually talking about? Like, give me an example.
Well, they talk about, for example, the world mountain.
Okay.
You find this in cultures all over the world.
Right.
They say it might actually represent the North Celestial Pole.
Okay, I think I need a visual here because I'm a little lost.
Okay, so imagine this. A giant framework.
Okay.
And it's in the sky.
Uh-huh.
And you have the Earth's axis. And it's like the central pillar. And then you've got these colliers, these two big circles, and they intersect at the poles. And those are like the framework of a world age.
Okay.
So then this precession happens, and the whole framework seems to move, and that's what myths saw as the end of an era, like the beginning of a new one.
So the precession isn't just like an astronomical thing. It's actually driving how these world ages play out in mythology.
Right, and there are a bunch of examples.
Okay.
The Egyptian myth of Osiris, he's often linked to Orion.
Right.
So the book says that this could be a symbolic representation of how Orion changes position in the sky because of this precession over thousands of years.
Okay, that's kind of mind-blowing. So you've got all these myths, they're encoding this astronomical knowledge, this precession, cyclical nature of time. But where do the floods fit in? You know, like Noah's Ark.
That's a great question, and you're totally on the right track.
Okay.
The book actually connects all those flood myths, from the Bible to Finnish lore about the Sampo being stolen.
Right.
To the same idea, cyclical destruction and renewal.
So it's not just about literal floods, but the end of a world age, and then a new one begins.
It's like hitting the cosmic reset button.
Yeah. Wow.
It's like these ancient myths are these time capsules preserving all this knowledge and insight from way back when humans were really in tune with the cosmos. But it's more than just preserving knowledge.
Right. It's like they actually had like practical information woven in too.
Oh, interesting.
Like instructions for navigation, agriculture, it's all kind of hidden in the narrative.
Wow. So they were combining science and spirituality in these captivating stories.
It's really amazing.
It really is. It makes
Yeah.
you wonder what else is hidden in there. But how did this knowledge even spread
Uh-huh.
across all these different cultures? I mean, it's not like they had the internet.
Yeah, and that's a question that's really baffled scholars for a long time.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you've got these civilizations, they're separated by, like, huge distances.
Right.
And yet they've got these myths, and the astronomical references are so similar.
So strange.
It's really strange. And so the book actually has this kind of controversial theory.
Okay, hit me with it.
Okay, so they think that all this knowledge, it might have come from a single source.
What?
Like, imagine a really, really ancient civilization
Okay.
that had this, like, deep, deep understanding of the cosmos that's lost to us now.
So you're saying there was like a lost civilization. Now we are going down a rabbit hole.
I know, it sounds crazy, but it would explain how these myths have such similar references, right?
Yeah.
Even across these different cultures, it really makes you think about, like, the traditional narrative of history in a different way.
Totally. It really challenges what we think we know about these ancient civilizations.
Yeah.
So are they saying, like, these myths are literally true?
Not exactly. They know that they're symbolic narratives. They're not, like, historical accounts.
Okay.
But they do think that the symbols, they're super meaningful. Like, they reflect a real understanding of how the world works.
So don't get caught up in the details of the story, but try to understand the bigger message behind it.
Right. But figuring that out isn't always super straightforward.
Yeah.
They say you have to analyze it really carefully, do these cross-cultural comparisons, which is what they do in the book. They look at tons of different things, like ancient texts, astronomical data, and try to put it all together.
So it's about connecting the dots, finding the patterns in these myths instead of looking at them like they're just individual stories.
Exactly. And that's how you have those aha moments where it all kind of clicks.
I like those moments.
Yeah.
Speaking of, one thing that stood out to me, the number 7.
Oh, yes.
They talk about it constantly. 7 planets, 7 stars in the Big Dipper, 7 days of the week.
It's everywhere, right? And remember we talked about archaic astronomy, that different way of seeing the universe? They're saying the ancients, they didn't just pick 7 randomly. They really believed that it represented this deep cosmic order,
Okay.
that everything in the heavens is connected and that it influences us down here.
So it's like they saw 7 as this, like, cosmic code, a way to understand the universe.
Exactly. And it's everywhere. Myths, rituals, how their society is structured. It's really kind of amazing when you think about it. Like, have we lost touch with that?
It's easy to get caught up in our own little worlds and forget to think about those big forces that are shaping our lives, for sure.
Definitely.
But these myths, they're a good reminder that we are part of something much bigger, something way older than us. We were talking about the Milky Way earlier, and they've got this whole thing about how it's like a giant world mill grinding away, controlling time and fate.
It's powerful imagery, isn't it? The Milky Way, with all those stars, it's like this giant engine that's driving everything.
It's awe-inspiring.
Yeah, it really is.
They also connect the Milky Way to all these myths about rivers and journeys.
Yeah, like the river Styx.
Right, or the quest for the Sampo.
And remember, archaic astronomy, these aren't literal journeys we're talking about.
Yeah.
They think these represent spiritual journeys, quests for knowledge, enlightenment, humanity trying to find meaning in this, like, chaotic universe.
So the Milky Way, it's like a symbol, a path, a bridge between us and something bigger.
Exactly. And all those heroes, like Gilgamesh, Odysseus, they become like archetypes, you know?
Yeah.
Representing our own struggles, our desire to overcome obstacles and find where we fit in. It makes you realize these myths, they aren't just ancient stories, they're about us too.
They're about our desire for connection, for understanding. That's why they're so powerful.
Exactly. They tap into something universal that we all feel.
Regardless of, like, when or where we live. And that's been passed down for generations, you're saying.
Right. It's hidden in these myths, waiting for us to find it.
You know, it makes you wonder if we've lost that.
What do you mean?
That ancient wisdom. Like, we've forgotten to just look up at the stars and feel that sense of wonder. Remember how we were talking about the precession of the equinoxes?
Yes.
And how it changes the position of the stars over time? It's like the Earth is doing this slow cosmic dance, right?
Exactly.
Well, the book talks about the pole star, too. You know, the one that always seems to stay put.
Right.
And how it relates to this world axis idea and cyclical time. But get this, the pole star, it actually moves.
Really? So
Yeah.
even the thing that seems completely still, that everything revolves around, it's moving too. Whoa.
I know, right?
No.
Mind-blowing. And the authors think that ancient cultures, They knew about this, and they worked it into their myths.
So the myths aren't static. They're like the cosmos, always changing, incredible. But how did they even represent something like that? A moving pole star?
Well, remember that world mill myth?
Yeah.
They say that the mill breaking or becoming unhinged, that might be a symbol for the pole star shifting.
Oh, wow.
It's like this huge event,
Mhm.
like the end of a world age, right?
Right.
And the start of a new one. So the whole cosmos is resetting, and this affects everything, right?
Absolutely. It's not just like an abstract thing. This reset, it changes everything. Nature, human history, everything. Like hitting the cosmic reset button.
Right.
And the authors say it's not random. It's all part of this huge cosmic cycle. Creation, destruction, renewal. It all happens again and again and again. It really puts things in perspective how small we are.
It does, but it's also kind of inspiring, right?
So,
We are part of something so much bigger than ourselves, something that's been going on for, like, forever. And our actions, our choices, they're all connected to that.
it's a pretty humbling thought, yeah. But really amazing, too.
Okay, so I have to ask, we've been going on and on about all this incredible astronomical knowledge and these myths, but were ancient people really, like, astronomers? Were they out there with telescopes mapping the stars?
It's a good question. And, you know, it's easy to think, oh, they must have had some technology we don't know about, right?
Right.
But in this book, they actually say that, yeah, some cultures, they had really impressive astronomical knowledge, but it wasn't like how we think about astronomy today.
Okay, how so?
It was more like they combined observation with symbolism and this deep, like, intuitive sense of these cycles in nature.
So it's not just like plotting points on a map.
Right. It's about understanding, like, the deeper meaning, how it connects to us, to human life, these cycles of time.
Right, right.
The authors actually call it archaic astronomy.
Archaic astronomy.
Yeah, it's like a completely different way of looking at the universe.
So it's less about hard science, more about understanding, like, the interconnectedness of everything.
Exactly. And I feel like we've kind of lost that.
It's true. We try to put everything in these neat little boxes.
Right.
Science over here, spirituality over there.
Yeah, yeah.
But these myths are saying, nope, it's all connected.
Exactly. They were seeing the world through a different lens. Makes you wonder if we've lost something important, you know, with all our focus on just the science.
I know what you mean. It's easy to write these myths off as like primitive or whatever. But this book, it really makes you think they knew something we've forgotten. So what can we learn? How can we actually use this archaic astronomy stuff in our lives?
For me, it's about cyclical thinking.
Okay.
We talked about those world ages, those cycles of creation and destruction. The ancients, they understood that. Time isn't just this straight line, it's a circle.
Everything goes around.
Exactly. There are these patterns in nature, and that includes us, human history, too.
So it's not always about progress.
Right. It's about understanding that there are these ebbs and flows, these cycles of, you know, growth and decay. They've always been there.
It's like they're saying, don't freak out. We've seen this all before.
Exactly. And I think that's really empowering, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely.
It helps us see all the craziness not as like a setback, but a chance for something new to begin.
What goes up must come down.
And what goes down must come up.
I'm sold. I need some more of this cyclical thinking in my life.
I think we all do.
So before we wrap up, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to remember from Hamlet's Mill?
That's a tough one. I think it's this. Those ancient myths, they're full of wisdom. Don't dismiss them as just stories.
Right.
They can teach us so much about, like, the universe, what it means to be human. They remind us we're part of something so much bigger and older than we can imagine. And if we pay attention, it can guide us, you know, even give us a sense of hope, purpose.
I love that. And that is Hamlet's Mill in a nutshell, folks.
Or maybe Hamlet's Mill in a turning of the wheel.
I like that even better. So until next time, keep those neurons firing and never stop looking up at the stars.